Dudes. Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. I'm your host, Big Sheeps, bringing you another episode of the Sunday Sheepcast. Brought to you by Sheep's Clothing. Yes, this just started, Danny. Alright, so if you guys aren't familiar with the format of the show, first off, I want to tell you, you can leave your comments in the comment section, and I will try my best to make sure that all your questions get answered. This is a very important episode to me, and what's echoing? Is still echoing, Dylan? Yes, this just started. Alright, let me see if I can fix this. Better? Is that better? Is that better, Dylan? Please tell me. Okay, so yes, it's still echoing, or yes, it's better, Dylan. Be clear. Okay, thank you guys. Alright, so yeah, like I was saying, this is a very important episode to me, and probably to a lot of other people, in the sense that today's show is going to be Lex from Daughters and As the Sun Sets. As most of you may know, he doesn't do very much press or interviews or anything of that matter, so for me to be able to sit down and talk to him is amazing for me, and I hope it'll turn out to be awesome for you guys as well. Next week on the show, we will have our rescheduled Knife the Glitter episode, which I'm also extremely stoked about. Yeah, I'm still not used to not talking to Dylan. When I wish you were here with me, Dylan. This is you're leaving me to do this nerve-wracking shit on my own. You'd think after a year I'd have this down by now, but I still don't, and I'm just gonna push through all the gusto like a mustard. Muster. Sorry, guys. So with this segment of the show, this is usually where I talk with Dylan about how his week's gone and how my week's gone as well. It's kind of been a dull week, not much to talk about, besides the fact that somebody poisoned my cat yesterday. So, R.I.P. Lord Farquaad. This episode's for you. I'm just going to go ahead and toss Lex in here because I know that's what everybody's waiting for. Hey, Lex.
Hello.
Could you go ahead and hit your video button for me?
I think I'm hitting this button.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Did I do it?
Nope, it popped off. Hit it one more time. There you are.
Hey, here's me.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to see me during the interview. I forgot to tell you about that. It's the way the...
Yeah, you should have told me that. Ordinarily awkward suddenly.
It's the way my program's set up. I can't really... You won't be able to see me if it's just one-on-one. Yeah, so I promise I won't be, like, holding up the sign over here or anything that says, like, you're a douchebag or anything like that.
I've been called so many things, it doesn't matter at this point. Do whatever.
So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Alexis Marshall. I sing for Daughters. I was in As the Sun Sets. Other projects, lesser known. But if anyone knows who I am, then Daughters or As the Sun Sets to a lesser extent.
Yeah, so if somebody comes up to you and they're like, oh man, I loved you in As the Sun Sets, you know, does that, like, hold a little bit truer to Daughters, in your opinion? Or are you just stoked that somebody knows who you are?
No, I don't, I'm not here to make judgments on people. Can appreciate whatever they like, that I've done. I'm not irritated by it or anything like that. And it's nice that I do something and people appreciate it. So if they're happy about As the Sun Sets, it's great. I'm not not annoyed or angry or thinking like I would never say that when you fucking grow up. That shit was like 20. That.
Is one? Do you favor one of the projects over the other, or is it just kind of like how you've progressed? Or
I mean, Daughters. I'm much happier doing Daughters as I've grown over the years, as we do. That it seems more, obviously it's more of a representation of myself now, what I'm doing artistically. So if I was to look back and think that, like, oh man, what I was doing back then was so much better, and now I'm just sort of trying to hold on, that would just be sort of sad. Why would I continue to make art if that's what if those are my feelings, that I couldn't get back to that place? So obviously I think for anybody making music or any form of art, they should be happy about what they're doing now, and should always feel that what they're doing at this moment is their best work.
So, how long was Daughters on hiatus?
It must have been 4 years, at least.
For me, it seems like a decade, but
well, we've always put out records very sporadically. So we're never consistent. I mean, we toured a lot, so there really wasn't much time for working on them. We're just sort of always going out and coming home, and we're a hard group of people to be around, so it seemed that we were always replacing somebody. So when we were home for an extended period of time, it was trying to like catch somebody up and teach them the songs we were playing, and then go out and playing them again. So I'd say that with our sort of random appearances sprouting, that the gaps seem much larger than they are. But I'd say it was like 4 years before we played another show. We did those 2 shows in Providence. That was 3 years ago now, I think. That was the first time in 4 or 5 years that we played. So the hiatus was 5 years.
So what was it like getting back out there after 5 years of not doing it?
I mean, with Daughters, it was a little strange. I had never. I got sober in 2000. What years are in now? 2017. So in 2008, I got sober, and we recorded shortly after that, and then we broke up shortly after that, or kind of had our split. So I kind of I felt like I was sort of done with music for a while, and I was trying to stay clean and sober, and it was just too much free shit when we were out, so needed to get away from that. The relationships we were having weren't positive. They weren't good relationships, and we weren't getting along, and we weren't comfortable like a Fleetwood Mac who could hate each other and still function. We were, living in a van, and when you hate people and you have to sit right next to them and sleep in the same room as them, it's just, you can only do that for so long, and kind of it implodes or explodes depending on where you stand. So I really thought I was all done playing music for a while, and I got really into jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and mixed martial arts, and was trying to do my best to stay.
So is
sober.
Your sober hobby is jiu-jitsu,
it was
martial arts and stuff like that?
It was at first, and then a few years ago I had major shoulder surgery. I dislocated my shoulder 4 separate times.
Wow.
And yeah, so I've been a bit. I've gotten back on the mat maybe 2 or 3 times, and I've just been really gun shy, and it's kind of a good place to be if you're kind of nervous. You won't learn anything. So I've been out of it for a bit, and then we had a baby, my wife and I. So there really isn't a lot of time, a lot of free time anymore.
Yeah,
but
understandable.
But playing, I did this band that we're still kind of doing, like a power violence band with a few guys called Fucking Invincible. So I kept playing music for a bit when I came back to it. It wasn't like we took this hiatus from Daughters and then I didn't do anything, and I said, "Whoa, my life is very dull. Let's start doing Daughters again," because no one gives a shit. you know, it was a couple years later, and I was listening to a lot of like Crudos and Left 4 Dead, a lot of shit that I was listening to a lot back in the late '90s, and I felt like I wanted to play I just wanted like fast punk music again, like shitty punk music, and I told a friend of mine that I wanted to sing for a band like that, and in like an hour or two, he had got back to me. He was like this guy's gonna play, and this guy's gonna play. We'll start playing. So I did that for a while, and that was just sort of the band I was doing, and it was a lot of fun, and it was cool to go back to just basement shows and VFW halls and kind of shitty places that not that like Daughters was too good for that, but we had moved on from there, and I forgot about the experience of just being good friends with people and then going and playing someone's house and then hanging out in the living room of some fucking strange house in Chicago. So it was great to be able to do that again.
Yeah, this podcast has basically been my sober hobby. I've been sober for about a year and a half now, and it's definitely difficult, and I couldn't imagine, especially being like living the lifestyle that you lived. You're basically being trained for like the alcohol and drug Olympics. You know what I mean? And then going from that to sobriety and trying to stay in the same environment it's difficult for anyone, let alone someone who, lives the lifestyle that you were living, like being on the road and stuff like that, and being around, a lot of people who are using and perpetually playing at, clubs that serve alcohol and etc. So I could hardly imagine that, man, and hats off to you for that. Do you feel like a sense of accomplishment when it comes to sobriety, or do you feel like you just kind of miss living the old way, you just know you can't go back to it? Or what's the story of that?
I miss that carelessness of like, let's just see, like I'm gonna just consume all this stuff and see what happens and where I end up. Yeah. And because everyone tends to sort of romanticize the idea of like the addict artist, or where you're drunk, you're a bit of a failure, and you make great art. It's really it's kind of a bit silly. But I didn't like I needed that to play music or to tour. It didn't make it easier. Often the contrary. But my father and his father and my brother, like, we're all addicts. So it was just very natural for me to just start doing that. But it was just available in such excess when we were out that you couldn't avoid it if you wanted to. And I was in my 20s, and I didn't have any real responsibilities. My apartment, my rent was like $170 a month or something. So I didn't worry about anything like that. There wasn't a concern that I was going to get myself into trouble or to fuck something up, or if I spent all my money, then it was like, well, I don't have any expenses, so that's not important. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm happy about it, and I'm doing it for me, and I knew that it was time that it just wasn't working anymore, that I wasn't functioning as a normal person.
Yeah, exactly. It has to get to that point before anybody ever changes anything about it. Do you feel as if it affects your mental state on stage? Like, do you feel like you have to live up to the person you used to be on stage, or do you feel like it's forced now, or if it just feels weird to be that person on stage, or is it just still fun?
I'd say talking, like speaking in between songs, is a bit different. It's not quite as easy as it was when I was drunk, but I remember talking to somebody years ago. He sang for some band that's not really worth mentioning, and he had said something about how he needed to drink to play, that it made it easier for him to just perform, and I remember I didn't say anything to him, but in my head I just thought, you're such a fucking phony asshole that you're not stage is an act, like you're up there performing, and that as though he's without alcohol he wouldn't know he would stand still or just like I just thought, man, fuck you, like. What then you shouldn't be there if this is an act, if this is a role you're playing. Then
yeah, maybe
you're in the wrong place.
Maybe it would like loosen him up, you know. Maybe he had like a sense of stage fright to him or something, you know. Not that he wanted to be a different person or he had to act crazy or something, but you know, it's a social lubricant, you know.
I think it's hard, and I don't want to say I don't respect someone who it was hard for me to respect him after he said that, and because it sort of cheapens. Well, then why are you playing music if you don't feel comfortable doing it? You know, like, I'm not sure I understand my thought process and my opinion on it, but I feel strongly that if you're going on stage and it's an act and you're sort of a fraud.
Yeah.
But there are people who they're performance artists, and there are people who have some. I mean, I don't. You know, Alice Cooper had a stage show, right? So it's applicable in places, but it just seems that
it's not very
at our level. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I guess I don't want to say that, but it seemed like at our level, if you were kind of putting on a show, then you were full of shit.
Well, you know what they say about the best part about being punk is being able to tell other people that they're not punk. You know,
right? like anything, right? You can do anything. You can have a very like a small bit of knowledge. You can specialize in like ancient or like Russian, the 16th century Russian literature or something, but you know so much about that. You can like tell people, oh, you don't understand this, fucking, you're an idiot. But they don't know how to talk about anything else, and like that's sort of the thing. If you're like a really punk, like you're not punk enough, but you take them out of the realm, and they're just sort of like scratching their ass. They don't know what the fuck to do with themselves.
There's always somebody who can be more punk than you, for sure. So I got a comment here from Eli, and he said, "What do you think about the two Dillinger shows in New York City?"
I'm happy to play those shows. I'm
quote unquote.
We were
Dillinger's
surprised.
Last show.
Right, the last 3 shows they're doing. Yeah, they're we were happy that they asked. It was flattering, and we had toured together. I don't know the year. I'm terrible. I have an awful memory. But we toured together with Dillinger and Planes Mistaken for Stars, and it was a lot of fun. They were great, and Planes was just like one of the best live bands I've ever seen. So that was the extent of our relationship with Dillinger. We've always kept in contact with Ben, seen Ben. You know, Daughters would be in New York, and Ben would come out. And I think John, our drummer, would talk to him briefly here and there, like through a email exchange or something. But so it was a bit of a surprise when they asked us. We were, very happy about it. And not just because they're huge shows, but I mean they're a band. When I heard Dillinger, it was they had that record on Now or Never, and that was with the first thing that they did. I don't remember what the name of the record is, but even at that point, we thought like this is like some serious shit. This band is just like they're way ahead of the curve right now, and the rest of us got to figure out how to catch up. And then they released Under the Running Board, and we realized that I think every band that thought Dillinger's onto something before Under the Running Board came out, when Under the Running Board came out, everyone sort of realized that that's theirs. Like we just can't get there. Like we're just not going to catch up, and we'll have to go somewhere else because you just can't compete with that. And they're a unique band, and they're rare in their talent and their creativity, and they're just sort of like where they're going with everything. To try to do that, try to sound like that band is so disingenuous.
We've kind of skimmed on this in other shows that we talked about, and I feel like it fits right now with what we were just talking about like people putting on an act and stuff like that. Now, I have the utmost respect for Dillinger Escape Plan, and I recently saw them when last time they came through St. Pete, and I remember seeing them, and I was just like, man, it's got to be absolutely grueling to do this in every single city, and, you know, do that big jump in every single city and every single town, and that because everybody's expecting it, you know, and I feel like I know that I would be let down if I saw Dillinger and I didn't see the jump, you know what I mean? Because I was like, that's what people go to see Dillinger for. And,
right.
like, now I don't, his name's Greg, right? The lead singer?
Yes.
So now,
right.
In the essence of the conversation, I don't feel like Greg would be the kind of guy you would just be sitting and having dinner with, and he jumps off a second-story building, like, in the middle of a day or something, you know what I mean? So, right. So everybody has to have some sort of performance that can't be them, you know, them true selves. I mean, because then, no one wants to go sit and just watch somebody be themselves on stage, you know.
Yeah, well, you don't want to. Yeah, and you don't want to sit and have dinner with Gigi Allen or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So, right.
You don't want to go knit with Gigi Allen or play checkers with Gigi Allen or something. You want to see Gigi Allen shake the cup and throw it at people.
I think playing checkers with Gigi Allen could be quite interesting, actually. Who knows where that would lead?
Probably lead to him sticking a chess piece up his ass. Like, honestly.
It could. And to think of that, while you're playing checkers, he would manage to have a chess piece. So who knows? He's an unpredictable individual. No, I don't think it doesn't seem insincere or anything. Like, you know, I've thought about that before, and with myself, when it's expected. Even now, people want me to get naked. You know, people are trying to take my clothes off while I'm playing. And
they want you to deep throat a microphone, and
right, and I do, and I'll oblige. But it's natural in the process while I'm performing, and I think that's the difference. I hope I didn't use performing in a negative context before, because it's like acting, like it's natural. Like when you're performing music and you become wrapped up in it and sort of lose yourself in that, and that's why often. I got naked a lot, and it wasn't because, well, here's the naked song, it's time for me to get naked. It was just, these things it was just kind of in this wheel. I was just spoke in this wheel, and it was just rolling, and I was just going with it. And sometimes I did, and sometimes I didn't, and there are times where you just want to, you're playing, and you don't even know what to do. There are times where I've just not known what to do and wanted to, pull my skin off and have, taken people's cigarettes and put them out on myself, because it's you feel so in control, but completely out of control. I'm not big on cutting myself, and I've cut myself before, and I cut my arm horribly on a tour in England, and I had this massive scar, a gnarly scar. I got infected, and I had to go to the hospital, and in wonderful England with their free healthcare, I just went in. They gave me some penicillin and gave me up and said, "Off you go." So, and it didn't cost me anything. It was wonderful.
Now, so in the same essence as I'm sure the jackass guys are sick of getting kicked in the nuts everywhere they go, or something like that. Does it grow old having that insanity be expected from you?
I suppose it can for the people who are disingenuous about it, and I'm not annoyed that people want to see me get naked. I feel like I'm someone's dad. I'm approaching 40, and there have been moments where I kind of start taking my pants off at some shows on the past tours, but I haven't gone that far because it just seems like I don't know. Maybe I'm just not doing that anymore, and I'm aware that. That's not something I'm doing.
Sobriety will definitely do that to you, man. It'll make you keep your pants on.
Right. I still I'm climbing something, or there's spit flying all over the place, or I'm still taking people's cigarettes and rubbing them on myself. So you just sort of lose something that is just no longer interesting. Similarly with the way I've sang over the years and have changed, it's something just wasn't interesting to me anymore to do that. And honestly, performing music is more for me than it is for the crowd. And am happy that people come to see us play, but I'm there because I want to be there, and I want to play, and I want to sing, and you could be a room full of anybody, I wouldn't really know the difference, and it doesn't make me sound like a complete asshole, because we do appreciate everyone coming out, but playing music, once I don't want to play music anymore, or I'm not feeling fulfilled artistically, then I'm not going to do it. It doesn't matter how many people will say, like, well, thousands of people will come and see you do this. It's like, but if I just don't want to do it, then there's no point in doing that. That makes sense.
Well, obviously we already have that question in the comments, like I said to you earlier. So what was the deciding factor to switch your vocal styles? You said it was just
I just wasn't. It wasn't fun for me, and I've been doing it for a few years, and the music I listened to wasn't like that. I was kind of straying away from that, and everyone was progressing in their craft, where Sean was becoming a better drummer, and everyone was learning how to play their instruments really well, because that's what you do when you do something for long enough, and to just sort of just to scream the same shit over and over again, it just wasn't interesting to me, and it didn't seem particularly challenging or even fun anymore.
Well, yeah, with the new style, it does seem like you could be a little more loose with it, and then each show would kind of be more different every time, like.
Yeah, I don't, and I think, and it just sounds better. It's just more enjoyable. I thought it adds more to the music. I think that it would be sort of silly to listen to Hell songs or the self-titled and have someone screaming on those songs. It just seem kind of fucking stupid.
Well, I'm a huge Canada Songs guy. Like, because that's the kind of vocals that I personally do myself. So I respect, like, really respect that vocal, your quality in vocals. If that sounds weird, I'm sorry. But
it's fine.
A lot of people refer to the new style as the drunk Elvis style, or the drunk cowboy slurring.
Right.
Now I will be honest, it took a lot for me to warm up to that, and I was kind of like really upset when I first heard it. I was like, because Canada Songs, in my opinion, is the absolute perfect album. Like, if I could create an album that sounded like Canada Songs, I would give up music entirely. I'd give up everything in my life forever and ride the coattails of that fucking album forever. And I would fucking put it on my tombstone. The album cover would be on my fucking tombstone, because it's just such an amazing fucking album. And anytime anyone is like, so what kind of music do you listen to? Instead of describing it to them, I turn that on and they're just like, what the fuck is that? You know what I mean? Like, that's pure insanity. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm into. This is the style I listen to. And yeah, so like I said, there's been a lot of controversy between it, and I was actually like severely surprised how well Hell Songs was received. And it was kind of mind-blowing to me that like everybody kind of took to it, and they're just like, oh, this is amazing, when I personally was so upset about it, But I will say that over the years, I have given it a chance, and it has really grown on me. I still will be a Canada Songs guy, but I'm no longer upset about it, and I understand why the transition was made, because people do grow as artists, and I'm not trying to stifle anyone's creativity. Do what you're gonna do. I'm gonna love Daughters, every album you guys ever put out, for the rest of your existence. So I'm not butthurt about it, but all I have to say is just Canada Songs was A1, dude. It was so good. Sorry for my little rant there.
That's fine. It's your show. That was that record was fun, and it was good. But we toured with that and just that 7-inch, and played those 15 songs whatever for a couple years, and it got to a point where there was just no fucking way we were gonna play those songs. It was just.
So are they out of the set
I
completely?
of doing those songs. Well, we've done a couple on the past few tours, but I don't know if we're gonna. I think we might do a couple of them at the Dillinger shows, but I think after that, that'll sort of be the end.
It seems like Jones from Indiana seems like one of the fucking greatest songs you could ever open a show with. You know what I mean? Like, if you just came out and then the intensity was built, then just be Drunk Elvis for the rest of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's people who just really want to hear that and are still sort of holding on to it, and that's fine. I mean, I'm still just want to hear Metallica play Kill 'Em All.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure.
But they should do whatever the fuck they want to do because it's for them. Like I said earlier, that if you're playing music for anyone other than yourself, then you're a fraud and it's insincere, and you should do something else with your time. Because I just don't. And that's what with Hell Songs. It was great, and we were really young, and we had a lot of fun with it, but we took it as far as we could go with it. And I think that it took a lot of pushing to get people to give a shit about Hell Songs. I think it did well, but we could have been bigger or gotten more attention had we done another Canada Songs. We knew that.
Do you think Hell Songs did do well because of Canada Songs? Or do you feel like as if you would have just went with the Hell Song style the entire time, it would have done better?
I think if we had done the Canada Song the whole time, it would have been better. And there were a lot of bands that sort of spawned from that.
Yeah.
That I really wouldn't know them if I was listening to them. I wouldn't be able to point them out. But there are a lot of bands that we were moving on from that once when everyone else was sort of latching onto it. And it's like I don't know them. I don't know. There's one like the Low band, Heavy Low.
Heavy
There's
Low.
a band like that. Like all those bands started coming up, and
yeah, like
and they were
style.
Right, and it's like See You Next Tuesday. I only know that band because they opened a tour we did with Coalesce, which would be the only reason I know that band's name. But
are you embarrassed to know the name See You Next Tuesday?
It's a terrible fucking name, isn't it? Like the word See You Next Tuesday.
What's funny is he's one of my other favorite vocalists. Fox
I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't know them if I was listening to them. And I'm not saying that they're a terrible band or whatever, but I know that those bands got there. And we were already there, and we were moving on because we were bored with it, and then a lot of bands started doing that. 'Cause I don't think we were breaking any ground, but there weren't a lot of bands doing what we were doing at that time.
And then when you were done doing it, there was tons of bands doing what you were doing.
Right. So had we stuck it out a little bit, or had we not lost interest, there would have been we would have had more peers, or there would have been more people excited about it.
I think it kind of makes it more iconic because, if you might have liked the first Saw movie, but then the second one or the third one comes out and you're like, okay, this is the same shit over and over. I think you left everybody wanting more, which is like a good way to leave it.
Well, the big benefit for us is that with the record we're writing right now, it's so different than the self-titled record that we, by such drastic changes each record, that no one expects us to be the same band. So anyone that's still listening to us is along for the ride because they care about what we're doing.
So is it safe to assume that?
Excuse my coughing, but I've got some kind of cold thing. This cough.
It's cool. So is it safe to assume that the next album that comes out is just going to be even weirder or different, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, it'll be different. Yeah, we're doing. It's very different, but it's still going to sound like. I think that you can see parallels between Hell Song and Canada Songs, where the progression, although it seems very abrupt, if you kind of break it all down and look at it, then you can see the carryover. And the same with from the Hell songs to self-titled, and I don't think that no one would think that this new Daughters record is a different band, something like that. But
so, what's the status on fucking Invincible?
we're just not really doing. We're not playing, obviously, but there's no real reason. I moved to PA and everything kind of went up in the air. And sorry,
you're good.
I moved to Pennsylvania for a bit, and we thought we'd play eventually. And then we lived there for 8 months or something, and we didn't care for it, my wife and I, and we thought we'd come back. So I'm living in Massachusetts, where I grew up, and I'm still close to Providence, but that gap sort of kind of put everything up in the air. We haven't brought it back down to piece it together and play. So
yeah, so you said,
but I'm super so busy with like adult life and we're having another baby, so there's all this preparation there, and I got a lot of yard work to do. A lot of fucking yard work. Fucking yard's a mess. Got like 2 acres or 2.5 or something. It's a lot of shit.
Living the dream.
A lot of leaves falling out of it. We got a lot of trees, a lot of leaves. So I got plenty to do, and trying to get a new Daughters record going has been soul consuming.
So
and I just wrote a book, so I was really involved.
Bring that up in a little bit, but so
right.
The is there a release date in sight for the new album?
No, we just recorded 5 or 6 songs, and we are gonna kind of flesh out a few more. It's tough. John lives in Texas, so we aren't together very often. So we really have to schedule time for it, and it has to come between tours because John's a tour manager. So we need John to be home for an extended period of time so we can rehearse and then go and record. But we have a Dropbox and we're adding things and talking about things all the time, and it's not convenient, but it's working, and we'd probably be a lot further along if we were all living in the same place. I mean, we'd certainly be a lot further along if we were all living in the same place, but that's not the way to. So we're making the best of it and making it work. We're trying to make it work. That remains to be seen, but it actually working. But it's fine. There's no things are never ideal.
So are you gonna stick to the songs pattern, like Canada songs, Hell songs? Is this gonna be like Jesus songs or something?
I don't know. I think we broke that with the last record. So probably not. It will probably be something else. We haven't really talked about titles yet.
Okay, so let me get to some of these questions in the comments. Kevin Langowski says David Yao or Nick Cave.
Who's the better singer or performer or more influential?
I think he's leaving it open-ended.
It's tough. They're so different. Cave is much more. He's turned into a sort of conductor in writing his music. Yeah, I was always just kind of been the singer, and it's all been Dwayne Dennison, I think, and maybe Sims writing everything for Jesus Lizard. So, the respect Nick Cave, and also Cave's longevity, and the Birthday Party is, of course, one of my favorite bands. But I think there are a lot of flaws in Cave's career that bother me. So, Yao is kind of been is through and through. There's not a bad Jesus Lizard record. he was a great performer. I saw them on the reunion tour that they did 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, whatever, 6 years ago, I think. And I saw Cheese Lizard in Boston at some very small club, and it was fucking unbelievable. It was really, really amazing. And when I saw Cave 15 or 16 years ago, it didn't speak to me on that like primal level. Like it was very I wept when I saw Nick Cave. But David, is more of like he's still the performer that he was, and I'd like to think that I am still the performer I was to some level.
Do you think anybody's ever
Nick Cave is sort of like very clean. Nick Cave's just kind of cleaned it up. This can be a bit dull. So the short answer is no. Short answer.
Do you think anybody's ever wept at a Daughters show?
Yes, there are photographs of a young woman crying in the front row at the festival we played in Houston last year. We played a festival, and someone got a shot of this girl in the crowd, like crying, like red,
like happy tears, or
yeah, like blown away that she finally seeing us.
Oh, that's awesome. I feel like that would be me in the front row. For sure. What was it like playing Hellfest?
I had never been to a Hellfest, so I didn't know what we were going to. I thought we were just being a big festival, and I'm not a big fan of festivals. I don't like that all day. Like there's this band, but this other band's playing at the same time, and you need to get from A to B, and then you got to go to the bathroom. Use a porta-john. It's a whole fucking process.
Yeah.
So, and it's comfortable and it's hot. It's summertime. So I was not excited about it, but we had fun, and there were a lot of people in the tent watching us. So I enjoyed myself quite a bit playing. But I always do. I don't feel that I've ever kind of played a show and then been on stage and thought, well, this just isn't the place for me right now. I mean, it's always great to play, but I don't enjoy festivals, hot summer festivals outdoors. No.
You realize
it was not a great experience, but it was fun.
You do realize that like Daughters and As the Sun Sets are like huge bands in the genre of music that you play in, correct? It feels like you don't understand how big of a deal you actually are sometimes.
No, I don't. I don't think that's.
It's completely accurate, I promise.
All right, well, that's nice. I don't feel that that's the case. Especially with As the Sun Sets, it didn't catch on until later. Like, we toured.
They're one of those. As the Sun Sets is like the band that you look back on and you're like, holy fuck, that was really great, and I wish everybody would have paid more attention to it when it was happening.
Well, we were terrible. We were fucking horrible live. We had to be one of the worst live bands. It was 30 seconds of just like really exciting, crazy shit, and like stuff, people flying all over the place. And it was like 3 minutes of someone trying to tune, and then we would say, what song do you want to play? Like, we don't know. And like no one, like we never wrote a set list. John would call out numbers, or John would start calling things out, and we'd start, and then somebody wouldn't know what song that was. And it was a fucking mess. It was just a really annoying thing. And we didn't see it at the time, but there's a limited amount of live footage that I've caught on YouTube over the years, and it's just fucking painful to watch.
Well, that's how any artist feels about anything they do, period. Like, ever. In the history of art, every artist that's ever created anything looks at it and like, wow, that's a piece of shit. And then somebody comes along and they're like, this is awesome.
But it wasn't the music, it was like the execution. It was just so... We just didn't know what we were doing. We didn't think of that. When we were doing it, we didn't have any friends that were in bands. Like, the thing, like, As the Sun Sets never had a band we were with. You look back at the old days of the Space in Worcester, Massachusetts, where it was like Cave-In was there, and Converge, and Coalesce, and Barrett, and all these bands were together, and everyone was friends, and it was a fucking great thing. But we didn't have anybody. Like our peers were other bands, like a handful of bands in Rhode Island, and no one ever came to see us play. When we went out of state, nobody fucking knew we were there. We would be like, As the Sunsets would show up at shows that were like, well, the show got canceled. No one told you, apparently. Or you'd show up at a show, and we'd say, like, well, can we just go and play? Can we just go inside and play or something? Like, we played to empty rooms, like actually empty rooms. Just like, well, no one gave a shit.
It's good if you're, like you said, you only play music for yourself anyway. So it makes sense.
Right.
To empty rooms.
When we were young, though, we were just like, fuck, yeah, this must happen to Converge. You know, like, as far as we, like, geez, this is a fucking tough business. So we never got paid. We never paid ourselves. We didn't know anything about per diems. Like, you got a bunch of cans of tuna fish and you just brought them on tour, and you ate a can of tuna fish a day and you hoped you survived. So you did your best, and it never. I don't. It was like the first Daughters before we found out that we were touring with a combination of and they said, oh, we have allotment every night where we all go to eat after the show, and then everyone's allowed a $5 limit to order off a menu. You can still order fucking food on a menu for $5 at this point. So that just like blew our minds. We thought, like, oh, that's great. Why don't we try to do that? But that's hard to do when you get paid $30 to play a show in fucking Idaho or something. Like, you don't. So you're trying to make it work, but you just assume, because you don't know, that that's what it's like for everybody. And you find out that people are continuing to do it. They've done it for a long time because they don't do it that way anymore. Like, if Converge had still been doing it to the they were at then, they wouldn't have kept doing it, because you just can't live like that. And the people who realize that's not for them start doing that and realize this is not going to fucking happen. And which is a big gripe I have with a lot of young bands that get 2 million Ks on their. Oh my god, I'm talking about young bands, right? I'm wearing a fucking cardigan. Right? I'm upstairs in this interview because my kid's asleep downstairs. I don't wake him up, and I have some fucking axe to grind about young bands right now. This is terrible. Whatever. So, but they're young bands who kind of skipped over those early steps where you sort of earn everything and you get your bumps and bruises, and then when things go well, you really appreciate it. Because you know how fucking terrible it was, and they don't get that, and then they get their way, and they throw a fit, and what are you gonna do? I don't know. I'm glad that it was so bad. I'm glad that it was terrible for a long time, because it was good for me as a human being, and for all of us as friends, and it was a good experience to see parts of the country and to be tired and dirty, and you hadn't had a shower in weeks.
Yeah, and a lot of people have lost.
You're hungry and it's fucking great.
A lot of people have lost.
What's that now?
I said a lot of people have lost the luster to do that, and they're content with making music just to put on the internet and not to go play in front of people. And that's why the scene has kind of just got shit on to the point where I couldn't even tell you when a good band's coming to my town at this point. I'm just going to sit on the internet and podcast about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, talk about it. Poetic about how we did. And because nostalgia can be dangerous, right? You can kind of get lost in that, and then you don't even realize how full of shit you end up being. So because we've all been young and heard older people talking about what it was like, and you just think, well, it's like this now. This is great. I don't know what you're talking about. But then you get older and you look back and you just think, oh, it really was fucking great. Like, it really was a lot of fun. And it's not because the scene was better or the music was better.
Back when we had to remember the things that we saw instead of having it on the internet to look at.
Right. I mean, it's no different now the way they're like encapsulated where you can things are taken and then kind of you can put it on a shelf, and then
it's
you can
almost like it
go
didn't
back and
happen if it's not on the internet.
Yeah, right. But so then it was like you really appreciate all that type of shit, and it was better because you didn't know that there was anything else. And then you get old and you learn that, like, oh, it's also like this, and then you get about this, and then you got to pay this guy, and then you got to do this other thing. So it was better when you just didn't know, and that's what it is. And it wasn't better in its full scope. It was better in this bubble because you were just fucking ignorant, and ignorance is can be bliss.
Yeah. Let me run through some of these questions on the comments. They're kind of building up here. Shay wants to know what are your thoughts about Sadist and opening for them in Boston, and the front man from Sadist cutting his chest with the razor on stage.
Well, they opened for us.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I might have read that
wrong. They're a good band. I think they're pretty cool. I don't know them personally, or I don't. I mean, I don't know. I would never say that it was stupid or something. It seemed a bit much for me, but.
Well, it isn't a band.
Like I said,
Sadist.
I have cut myself. I've seen watched old Iggy Pop footage of him cutting himself, and this sort of spur of the moment feel is great. Like there's that old footage of Iggy in Detroit or wherever, and they're playing that massive kind of stadium, and someone throws a jar of peanut butter, and Iggy catches it and just unscrews his cap and starts smearing peanut butter all over himself. And there's this fucking brilliance of how like kind of disgusting it is, and then how just like I'm just gonna do this. Like, here's a jar of peanut butter, and there are a lot of things where like I drank someone's piss like off the floor once, and it was just like, this guy's taking a piss, I'm gonna drink this piss. Like, so there's this kind of something much more wonderful when things are sort of spur of the moment, and when things are planned. It's kind of, I don't know, that doesn't excite me.
So have you like ever lost a game of Never Have I Ever? Because it seems like you've done pretty much everything there is to do in terms of just whacked out shit.
I've never played. Is that like Spin the Bottle or something? I've never played it.
So Daniel says grow your hair back out.
I think I might start. I don't know. I haven't cut my hair in a bit, so
you got to go through that like awkward Beatles phase.
Like a weird fucking state. It's like it gets stuck in the back and shit. I don't know.
Just grow sweet.
I know I shave my head a lot, and we've been shaving the boy's head, but he doesn't want to do it anymore. he like won't let us cut his hair, and so my wife's trying to like style his hair, like just put stuff in his hair, because his hair is like mine, so it'll just grow straight like cousin It. You just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
So his hair is starting to grow, and she's trying to style, and he won't have it. So in solidarity, I've decided to stop shaving my head with him and let my hair grow and let it look like shit. Because my wife keeps saying his hair looks terrible. I'm like, hey, he's a kid. So I've decided to.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, see how long it gets. I don't know how long it's gonna last. But.
So Shay also says Hellsong's changed my taste in music. Blake says I'm still upset about it. Then Joey said I'm with Blake, totally upset. So that you can see that there's a kind of a war going on in the comments between Hellsong and Canada songs. That's how far back it's been since I've looked at the comments. I've been asking the questions I want to know about.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, those records just for people to look at. You can listen to that whenever you want. You know, just don't demand we continue to do that for you, like, with our time and our lives. That's all. But listen to Canada songs all you want. Shit, have them all.
Jason says Wikipedia claims that they really didn't like making their self-titled record. Is that true?
I didn't. I feel like that record, there's some of the best stuff we've ever done is on that record, and then some shit I couldn't be bothered with hearing ever again is on that record. And I had gotten, like I was saying much earlier, I had gotten sober, and it wasn't the most important thing to me, which is why I had to get away from it. I was training with a lot of guys who were fighting and had fights, and it meant more. And we started talking about touring, like, well, with this record come on, we're gonna have to go on tour. And I wasn't enthusiastic about going on tour and leaving my team, like the guys I was training with, because I felt more just camaraderie with them than I did with these people playing music, and it just wasn't. My heart wasn't in it. So yeah, I didn't want to be at the recording. I didn't want to go back out, and I've always liked singing, even when I'm having a miserable time, but it just didn't seem like a group of people I wanted to be around anymore. Which is everyone at Daughters. I just wasn't happy. So yeah, it's Wikipedia, and shit, if it's on the internet, it must be true, right?
So Shay says, my uncle and I got really close before he passed because of Hell Songs. Thank you so much for that. I guess they listened to it together or something or other.
Yeah.
Harley said, Hell Songs got too much hate for breaking away from the old vocal style. It blew my mind the first time I heard it. I'm gonna say
Harley Flanagan? Harley Flanagan knows his shit then.
No, Harley Detrick. I don't know if he knows his shit or not. I can't vouch.
Hey, I fucking know. He's good. He's a good guy. If you're in Fishtown, PA area, and you need a haircut, you see Harley. What about Harley? No bullshit. Harley never cut my hair, but he does a good job. I'm not joking. I'm being very serious.
Helda says.
So what did Harley say? What did he say? What did Harley say?
I said, Hell Songs got too much hate for breaking away from the old vocal style. It blew my mind the first time I heard it.
Yeah. Because Harley knows his shit. He doesn't just know hair. He knows Hell Songs.
Helda says, Hell Song is such a perfect representation of what it is to be someone from Rhode Island. In parentheses, is that all there is here?
I don't know if we were like that's nice to hear. I would like to be remembered as like a great Rhode Island band. There are great bands from there, Arab on Radar. I feel like Arab on Radar is like the quintessential Rhode Island band. To me, like they were a band that I heard and I saw play, and I just was fucking I was in awe. I was just shocked by what I was seeing. It was this crazy. I can't remember who they were playing with, but I remember the first time I saw Arab on Radar, and it just like I was floored with how just uncomfortable the whole experience was in a really wonderful way. It was like watching some really fucking strange outtake from The Wizard of Oz that like Jodorowsky directed. Like that, just like it didn't make sense, and it was absurd and kind of scary. And
Keith wants to know, is Dumb and Dumber an accurate depiction of Rhode Island people?
Yeah, it's great. It's spot on. Everyone's like...
Keith also wants to know, how did you celebrate Halloween, and what was your kid's costume?
He dressed as Batman. He's a big superhero fan right now. So we... the hell did we do during the day? I remember we got home. Oh, everybody worked. So we got home and kind of scrambled out to do the Halloween thing. But he became fascinated with a neighbor's house. They have an elaborate setup, the smoke machine. And he just wanted to stand in the fog machine. And that's what we did for like 20 minutes. Other houses, and then did it again, and went home.
Keith also asked, who was in the graveyard in your chest tattoo?
There's some zombies in there. It was supposed to be a really elaborate like Universal Monsters thing when I proposed it to my friend that does all my tattoos, and he turned into this sort of zombie thing. So there's some zombies and some Entombed lyrics for you Entombed fans.
He also asked, did you draw the illustrations in your book? Can you tell us about your new book and what it entails, and where can we get it?
My wife drew their old sketches she had drawn in a book while she was in Italy. She went to RISD. She's very talented and intelligent, even though she is potentially spending her life with me, so that should raise some questions, but academically she's extraordinary. And she just had a book that while she was studying in Italy, she had would sit out in some fucking bench in some park down thing and draw lots of weird shit. So a lot of it is from that. The covers from some sketch she had done there. I think there's a drawing on the back that she had done that was sort of something she had included and she had drawn for me when we were dating, that was during some kind of strange, depressing suicide watch that she was on for me. That she drew a skeleton, apparently, because that's what you do for people who want to kill themselves. So yeah, so that's all her art in the book. It's a poetry collection. I had been there are old poems, some old poems I had from years and years ago, and then some newer things I had written at Permanent Sleep Press. Is a small publisher in Toronto that contacted me and asked if I had any interest publishing my work, and I said yes. That is the only reason I am on social media. I got an Instagram in hopes of promoting myself in some way, which I'm not good at doing and I hate doing, but I thought if I'm gonna do something with the poetry I've been writing for years, that I should be available to people so they can fucking read it. And before I could really get it going, the Finner contacted me from Permanent Sleep and asked, and I was very happy, because if left to my own devices, I wouldn't have followed through. So, but I've sold out of everything. I have there are copies available through Death Wish, and I think it's almost out. I think they're running out of Death Wish, which is validating. Feels nice.
Yeah, I know.
So
I definitely need to pick it up as well.
I should go and buy it so that I can feel better about myself.
So let's see here. Okay, so Helda says, "Hey Lex, we once spoke really briefly over the phone when I worked at Newberry Comics. Haha. Just wanted to say congrats on the book. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm really enjoying it so far."
Hey, thanks. I'm glad. There's a moment of terror when you've been writing accompanied by music for 2 decades to be on my own.
Oh yeah, the vulnerability is insanity. Like
it's terrifying.
You can be on a stage in front of tons and tons of people and be drinking someone's pee or doing something crazy, but the second you have to sit down and talk about feelings, that's a different hurdle to jump there.
But even without that, it's sort of there's nowhere to hide. At least if the next dog record falls apart, we can say we have there are excuses that we can make for, well, we haven't been doing it for a while, or the recording was flat, or we're all in this together. I mean, what are you gonna do? But the book is garbage. That I'm sure some people will find it to be garbage. Then that's on me. I'm the only one responsible for it. So there's you have that. I have that fear where I'm not. I'm writing this website, and he asked me to do some reviews for some film reviews, and I've never written a review before, so I'm writing this review, and now I'm thinking, I don't fucking know what I'm doing. I have no idea how to write a review. This is terrible, and it's a terrible feeling right now to go through that. So yeah, working alone in that to that extreme is scary stuff. But it's self-induced. I mean, I don't have to do it. So if it's that awful, I can walk away. But
so Harley asked, Lex, do you remember collecting the crowd's spit in your hands, then drinking it at Cafe Metropolis in Wilkes-Barre, PA? You played with white mice and an albatross. That was performance art, and I might have wept.
I don't remember doing that. I remember doing it in other places. It's disgusting, but I don't remember that particular time. I do remember that little tour we did in that show, and we stayed at a really weird house that night with white mice. The two of us, or our two bands, went and stayed at this like a nice house, like a nice house, but they had saved a lot of stuff. Like they had a lot of stuff in there, like old magazines and newspapers type of stuff, and it was a little strange. It was a strange house, but Wilkes-Barre was a fun place. Like I love playing there. I guess that Harley's talking about that cafe, whatever it was, I can't remember, but we played there a lot, and that was a good venue. There were there were years like we went to Wilkes-Barre instead of going to Philly. Like we didn't play in Philly for a bit because shows in Wilkes-Barre were great.
Right on. Patrick, my friend Patrick says, late to interview. Why vocal change from Canada songs to Hill songs?
It was fucking boring. Boring. That's the short answer for it now. I was bored.
We should have waited to answer that until the very end to make people sit through the entire interview.
They've already tuned out. It's just you and I talking. You're reading things that are like, it's like the light from a star. The star's dead, but the light's still traveling. These questions are still there. The people who've asked it have long departed.
So Matt says, can we agree that MySpace was probably the greatest outlet for bands as well as their fans to connect with? I feel like scenes and shows diminished when it fell off, and the people don't know how to keep up now, which I guess in turns made shows awesome again, but it was only kids wanting to hunt them down.
Yeah, I never had MySpace. I never had social media until very recently, until just last year. I have Instagram now, and so I don't know. I never used MySpace or anything to find out about shows or to get information. I used Facebook. I've never had a Facebook page. I'm very nostalgic for record stores. Like being able to find a record store and shop and find bands that way. Like I found a Nation Ulysses record in '97 or whatever because I thought they looked cool. Like they were just a cool looking band, and they turned out to be a fucking great band. So I'm like misdiscovered in that sense. I have a lot of old flyers for old As a Sunset shows and bands before that, like that we had done before that have directions that will say call Joe. I have our old bass player's phone number on it. Because if you saw the flyer for the show and you wanted to go, you'd have to call and get directions for the place. You couldn't like Google Map it or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and if you saw a band, and it was beneficial, I think, being in a band because it was a more human interaction where you played a show and then you had your demo tape or you had your CD or fucking whatever, because that shit was cheaper. Like there was that point in the early 2000s and like where like you'd get a 7-inch, but like no one, I feel like no one really had LPs at shows because it was just a bit more expensive and cumbersome. So, so you would go, and if you saw a band that you liked, you didn't like bookmark it or some shit. Like you bought what they had, and then when they came back, you'd go and see them because you didn't know if you were going to see them again, and you didn't know where they were from. You'd have to like stop and talk to them afterwards and find out who they are. And we made like As the Sunsets made friends that way with a lot of really cool bands. Like there was a band called 7 Day Curse that Tortuga put their stuff out, which Mark Thompson ran Tortuga. It was his label, and then he eventually joined Hydra Head before all that whole split. And Mark had put out their stuff, and we saw them we went to see Crisis. I don't know if anyone remembers Crisis, probably not. But we went to see Crisis in Worcester, and 7 Day Curse played, and we talked to the singer. I can't remember his name anymore afterwards, and we just like made friends. And hey, we're also in a band. You always had your demo with you, and so the exchanges were just like real life. There was like breath in everything you were doing. It wasn't passive in this sort of like go to Spotify and then click on like you like this, you also like this other shit. It's just so easy and accessible that I think people don't appreciate or even pay attention. Even when they're seemingly paying attention, they're really not absorbing anything or caring at all.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get through these last like few coming through, and then I'm gonna shut down the comments for everybody. So I'm sorry, I probably won't be able to get to it. I still have a couple things that I need to get to over here before that. This is probably like our most commented on interview so far. So Andrew wants to know, will Daughters switch up the set list for Dillinger's final show in NYC?
I think, well, yeah. We've been playing the same set for a bit, so.
Jeremy wants to know, what Daughters song are you most proud of writing?
The Virgin, I think, would be like my favorite Daughters song. I really like that record, and that sort of stemmed from a poem I had been writing, and it found its way into the song. So it was a nice kind of crossover that doesn't happen too often.
Is that your favorite song you've ever written, or your favorite song to perform?
I love playing that song. I'd say the Virgin, a Dead Singer, I love playing those two songs the most. Those would be like my favorite Daughters songs. And I think that the lyrical content in the Dead Singer is some of the best stuff I've written. Actually, I'd say the end of Unattractive Portable Head is probably some of the best stuff I've written for a song. It's anthemic, as they would say, as Nick says.
Brett Panzer wants to know, who is Mike Marra?
Mike Marra. He's in a band called Weak Flesh. They're kind of a grindy. They're like kind of a grindish. I don't know what the fuck to call them. They're kind of fast punk grind. DB type shit, Texas. But Mike Moritz was a good friend of mine and John. I slept at his house quite a bit when I was homeless, and when I wasn't sleeping in John's basement. And bless you.
Thank you.
So John and I have been friends with him since we were 17 or so. But he's a good friend, a close friend.
So Matt says, well, actually, Matt, we'll cover this after these questions, so it'll be alright. Patrick says, as a musician, how did sobriety change your outlook and productivity as a songwriter?
I'm not sure. I mean, it certainly changed, but I think that it's changed more by my surroundings. I have a life, I have responsibilities, and having a child around, it kind of limits my time. When I was drinking, when we wrote Hell Songs,
What about having feelings? That's probably a rough one.
Feelings? Fuck our feelings. When I wrote Hell Songs, I had, I think like there were records like in my bed. I was compulsively watching Deadwood, the TV show. I was sort of, and the show Carnival, like I was reading these two HBO shows because I was trying to get in this like weird Western and like kind of America in the 30s feel for a lot of that record. So I was drunk. I was drinking in my bed, so there'd be like empty bottles of Night Train in my bed and records, and the show, I'd wake up to like the menu screen playing over and over again. So obviously I can't do that anymore because one, I would be dead if I was still drinking that much Night Train, but I just don't. I don't have that kind of time, and so the process is of course different. But thankfully, after doing it for 20 years, I've figured out like a more artistic sense to it, and it's sort of taking advantage of the time I have and using it appropriately, and not just getting drunk or writing a bunch of bullshit and then not using it or whatever. So I try to be a bit more direct and. I don't know.
Patrick also asked. He says, "Last fanboy question: What vocal effects do you use on As the Sun Sets 7744 on the album?"
I think there was a pitch shifter. I think there was a very just a little bit of a on that, or maybe there wasn't. Maybe there was a pitch shifter on each individual voice. I think there was a. Maybe we did all that stuff with a little bit of a pitch shifter. That was a really long time ago. I mean, that's like almost that's a really long time. So I know there was a bit of a pitch shifter on each individual voice because I got really sick right before the recording, and Adam, who recorded us, put a pitch shifter on, kind of like helped me out to like thicken it up a bit because I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do. So I think maybe we went back in with 8949 and 7744, and which were both recorded at the same time in the same session. And there might have been like a little bit of a pitch shifter on there, but I might be wrong. There might not be anything. I know that each individual voice had a pitch shifter on it.
Keith wants to know, out of all the close calls from police from Ludax on stage, have you ever been caught?
No, I've never. I was threatened quite a bit with that, but the one time was really close to in LA, and I ran like this, and I didn't even know that like there was some situation with the police, but I thought the bouncers were about to beat the shit out of me. They got very like upset and confrontational and like pointed, "Is this the guy?" And Jeremy, who was the original Daughters guitar player, wasn't in the band. He lives in LA, and we were playing in LA. And I looked over at him, like I didn't know what the fuck to do. He certainly wasn't going to protect me because he's not any bigger than I am. And he said, "Yo, we need to get the fuck out of here." And it was like, all right, let's go. I got the old knitting factory in LA had I'm not sure if it's still there. I think I've heard it's not there, but it had a kind of a weird load in, and it was like running through, like in Die Hard when Bruce Willis is up, he's like kind of like behind the scenes and crawling through. So it was sort of like that. Like we ran down hallways and around corners and like out into a parking lot. That was like the closest I was to some like serious fucking trouble, as far as I know. And then I heard a fucking story that I almost got beat up by a bunch of skinheads because I stuck a microphone on my ass, and I had no recollection. I was like, just found out about this story like 2 years ago.
So what's the weirdest thing that you've ever heard you did, but you don't remember doing? We had the Chinese Stars on tour with us, and we were playing a show in Philly. I met up with my friend Wes, and he was living in Philly, and we went out drinking, like the whole bunch of everyone in Daughters, and
the show started. It was at the old church, the Unitarian Church, First Unitarian Church, Philadelphia, which is a great place to play and a lot of fun. And everyone went back where we've got to get our shit and move our stuff and do whatever we're going to do. And they said, Wes, just make sure, because I always needed a babysitter. I can't take very good care of myself. And if I'm not brought to the stage, essentially, I on all the likelihood won't make it, or wouldn't. I'm better about it now. But they said, you got to make sure Lex gets back here so he can play. We said, okay. So he takes me around Philadelphia to places in some various bars, and I get really drunk, like really, really drunk, but not more drunk than I usually get. But I was very drunk. And then we get back to the show. Wes gets a call, like, we got to bring him back. We're going to play in like 20 minutes. So we get to the show. He hands me some drugs. He says, "Here, take these." And I was talking to somebody outside. I said, "Oh, yeah, sure." And he put some stuff in my hand. I took it. And then I just wrapped up what I was doing. And this is in like 2 minutes. I get to the bottom of the stairs. And then I come to without my shoes on in a stall, vomiting, like puking quite a bit. And then I lose consciousness again. I wake up in his home, lying on his bathroom floor with him over me, puking into his toilet, and then I pass out again, and then I wake up in the morning. And now, so to fill in the spots, I had just gotten naked, apparently, like started. I guess I played the whole set in this church naked, and then grabbed a kid's face and stuck it up my ass. Into my ass, and he was very upset. And at one point I disappeared, and they were playing some song, and so it's instrumental for quite a bit, and apparently very awkward. And I returned from a broom closet with a broom or a mop or something, and a bucket on my head, and I was marching across the stage, bucket, and someone had taken the microphone. I had like, the microphone is gone now, and this person sort of, they're playing a song. I'm marching nude with a bucket on my head around the stage, back and forth, and a guy screaming into the microphone, I'm dying, and I have AIDS." And it's this like twisted, horrible, like non-humorous type of failure. It wasn't like getting kicked in the balls, like with football, like accidental kind of failure. Where you're like, "Oh, it's funny." It was just this like kind of, what the fuck is happening? This is snotty. This is like gone beyond bad taste, and is just its own horrible level of something else. Where like you no longer attain like good and bad and really bad and exceptionally bad. It was like then it was like marching on the stage like a fucking idiot on the screams of like, it was its own thing. It was
its own level of bad.
It was like hopefully we'll never reach that level again. But so it wasn't like no one got hurt. It was just something that when I hear about it, I just think that is just fucking like, that's a drunken idiot nightmare.
On stage.
But it's not like exactly. It was on stage. Had it just happened, it would have been quite humorous. The fact that it happened in a church basement,
that people paid to see you do it.
Yeah, and like I don't know what the reaction in the room was. Our friend Paul, who was in Shiny Stars, had met a girl there. Like he had a friend come there, and he was like, he was like, "Well, I'm Philly. I'm gonna try to hook up with this girl." During this, turned to him and she said, "I gotta go," and left. And they was just like horrified by the situation. He was just like disgusted by the company he was keeping. So, it was bad.
So what's the first CD you ever bought with your own money?
I bought there was a live AC/DC, like double. They used to do CDs in double cassettes, like really bulky, awful. They're like this thick. It was a unbelievable waste of plastic, and you like open one side, and then there would be like a booklet in some way to justify it. I think that might have been the first thing I bought with my money, and in hindsight, it was awful. Because it was Brian Johnson, and who gives a shit about Brian Johnson era AC/DC? If it's not Bon Scott, then you're just fucking wasting your time. So I'm not proud of it. But I think that was the first one I bought.
What's your dad's favorite band?
My dad was a big Arlo Guthrie fan, and Hank Williams. So I would say Arlo Guthrie was his.
So did Daughters ever have a merch concept that never kind of took shape that you wish did? Like just something bizarre or strange?
No, Jeremy, who I talked about earlier, who we ran away from the big hulking security. He kind of took control of all of the. He was a RISD graduate. He's a very talented artist himself, and he was in control of all of the art and the look and all that shit. So I never asked questions. We sort of gave him the space to do it because he was good at it. And we didn't have a look like we weren't like Bajas or something where things like had a particular vibe or something, like things should look a certain way. We just he was things and he did all the art, Eyes of Sunsets art. So he had credentials, right? I mean, he's been doing it and it looks good, so we'll just let him do whatever the fuck he wants and keep doing it. But we did some shit that I think is terrible, like that vagina bat stuff we did. Those are those are stupid. And
it was the time though, man. It was the time.
I'm sure
the early 2000s were a lawless wasteland.
Right. Yeah, but that shit doesn't age well, and that's like that's what's unfortunate. You look back and see it, it looks fucking lousy. It's just lousy shit.
What would you consider the worst stage injury you've ever had or ever inflicted upon someone else?
The worst, the worst I ever inflicted on someone was
shoving
partially
in your naked ass.
That must have been somewhat enjoyable. I mean, he knew what he was getting into. If you stand that close to a naked drunk man who's all hopped up on pills. So we were with the Locust, and we were in Austin at emos, and a kid got on the stage and pushed me over when he was jumping off the stage, and I fell down, and I sat up, and he had landed on the crowd, and he was sort of sitting up, and we were sitting looking at each other in this like Old West duel type of vibe, and I had the microphone, and I just I was drunk and angry, and I was just
Nick
did push me over a couple of times, but I just fucking hit him with the microphone in the face, and security saw this going on, so they grabbed him and they pulled him outside, and apparently they really beat the shit out of him on there. During his face was like busted his face open, and it was like a really gratuitous beating. They just unnecessary. So I feel that I am partially responsible for that happening.
Not
really. I can't take
responsibility
for their behavior.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of like
sort of like my overreaction to it.
That's abuse of their power kind of thing, you know.
Right.
Like, it's like
well,
a
they were
cop
like,
beating the shit out of somebody, and
right.
Or in the eyes of the law, like just because you were in the car and then somebody shoots somebody, you're responsible for it too, or something. You know, like that's totally unrelated.
Well, I think that maybe I sort of gave it the okay for this to be.
We're going to start. It was definitely the green light, but
yeah, it wasn't. It was not a good thing. But I hurt myself. Aside from the slicing my arm with a grotesque, massive wound, I dislocated my shoulder. My third and fourth dislocations happened while I was playing during an FI show, I dislocated my shoulder. It was the third time I dislocated my shoulder. And I played the remainder of the set with my shoulder out of its socket. I just kind of was lying on the ground playing. And then I went to the hospital and they put it back in.
You didn't learn how to put it back in yourself?
Well, the first time I dislocated, I put it back in myself. And the second time I couldn't get it back in, and a guy I was training with. The first time I dislocated, I was doing jiu-jitsu, and I was rolling with this guy. I didn't know him, and I was just not gonna let some guy I don't know, like, you know, fucking tap me. It's just like really prideful, like macho bullshit. And he just wasn't having it anymore. I was being really stubborn, and kind of, we were parlaying these back and forth, these positions, and he finally just fed up with it, and he turned it over, and it pulled my shoulder right out of it. So I, you know, put it back in. Second time I was training again, maybe like a month later, and a guy I was training with put it in. I couldn't get it in, so he popped it in for me. But the third time I couldn't. I just couldn't. I was trying the whole set, and I couldn't get it back in. So I went to the hospital afterwards. And the fourth time, the two daughters reunion shows we did, that second night I was dry humping the floor and on the stage, like in this like Prince move where like Prince used to try to fuck the stage, and I put my hands like push-up position and pushed myself up, like popped myself up so I'd land on my feet, and when I threw my arms forward, it popped, it jumped right out again. And the pain is fucking unbelievable. I don't know if you've ever like had a massive, like a major dislocation like that, but
I'm a pretty lazy, cautious person.
It's like it's horrible. It's horrible pain, and as soon as it goes in, it's relief. It's immediate relief. So there's like desperation to get it back in when it comes out. Like you're like just trying my ass off to get it back in, and I couldn't. It was like a fucking 8-hour night or something of just like hanging out at the hospital with my shoulder out of its socket. Fucking sucks. So that was the worst injury I've had.
What's the weirdest place you've ever played a show?
We played some weird places. I don't feel like we've played anywhere that bizarre. We've played, yeah, I can't think. I mean, we played some shitty venues. We played like some really dirty, uncomfortable squats, you know, in Europe, like just some fucking awful places, and that can suck when you play in this like really fucking filthy, shitty room, and then someone leads you to the room next door with like a bunch of cots. Oh, this is where you're going to sleep tonight. You're welcome. And you just kind of go, really, you start to question why you're doing what you're doing. But I can't think of anywhere we've played, like, you know, we've never played like a haunted attic or something, like, or fucking ship, you know. So nothing too bizarre.
What about the most exotic place or the most culture shock you've ever experienced?
Japan was a huge culture shock because we have been to Europe multiple times, and you can get by, you know, like you can pretend to be fucking German or something, you know, like, and as long as you don't say anything, no one's going to know. But being in Japan, you're very, very clearly not Japanese as a white, a gangly white man with a terrible mustache. Like, you just look like you don't fit in. So, but people are considerate, and they don't. It doesn't bother anybody there. But it's definitely the one place I've been somewhere and be like, well, I am clearly not from here. I'm obviously a foreigner, and I couldn't pass for a local. Yeah. No matter how hard I tried. So that was great, and it was great. It was really liberating to be like that sort of just like, well, fuck, here I am. You know, I don't belong here, so you gotta deal with me. Let's make the best of it.
So do you have any like musical training whatsoever?
No, I have a friend who's a vocal teacher. She's well trained. She performs a lot with the body. She's on most of the body records. She's a vocal teacher and coach, and runs a women's choir. I sang a song on. She does a choir, a women's choir called the Assembly of Light. And I sang a song on one of their records years ago, and she's been helping me since I started singing again, because I would like to do it correctly. Because as it turns out, there's a right way to sing, and I had no idea. So she's been helping me along with that. But I've never I can't play a guitar. Like I play meaningless instruments. I can play the harmonica or like the juice harp there. Like, I can do that shit. That shit's fun. I do that stuff, yeah. But I can't. I can't play guitar or anything like that. I never took lessons for anything.
So, what was the story behind the bad blood between Cattle Decapitation and Daughters?
Is there bad blood between? Is that what did they say that?
Oh, it was, it's somewhere because Keith dug it out. He dug it out of the closet somewhere. He must have saw it somewhere. I just feel like your ego and his ego clashing is not good to be sat in a room together. What's his name? Travis?
Travis, yeah. I can say safely that I don't think my ego was the problem.
Well, I've also heard that he's a serious asshole, too. And this isn't from anyone that I've interviewed or anything, but there's this guy that I used to know that worked at Guitar Center who was a tour drummer for Cattle Decapitation for a while. And he said that, like, if he'd miss, like, a cymbal catch or something, like, Travis would turn around and spit on him, or, like, they were just all really mean to him on tour and shit. So, I mean, that's the concept. Like, that's where my mind takes it instantly, because I've heard that, and that's why I've known for so long. And which is really why I haven't reached out to interview him either, even though I do really like Cattle Decapitation. But
he's got a fucking great voice.
Yeah, his range is incredible. Like, it's insane. He can be, like, as high as the highest thing I've ever heard, to the point where, like, could break your eardrum. I have permanent tinnitus from seeing them. And seriously, from, like, that high down to, like, a sink gurgling blood, like, that's his range is incredible for sure. But
yeah, absolutely. We went on Cattle Decapitation, Daughters, and Locust toured together.
That's an odd mix. But I mean, I would definitely be there for that.
What the real problem seemed to be that Cattle Decapitation felt that they should have been playing above us, and they weren't. They were opening the package, and I think that just created a lot of animosity in that sense. So, but I didn't have a lot of interactions with Travis. I have heard that he's a bit of an asshole, and the few interactions we had were kind of like meaning, like very vapid, and sort of like we're just being nice to each other because we're on tour. And but I mean, he might be a nice guy. He could just be like a guy that's just really tough to work with, and there are plenty of people that are like that, where they're nice as pie. I mean, with James Brown, it was fucking awful to work with, right? I mean, fining people for missing, you get getting spat on is one thing, or missing a cymbal grab, but you get fined like thousands of dollars for missing that shit with James Brown. So, so
that's weird that
I think that's what it was. He just didn't want to. They felt like they shouldn't have been opening, and so that's just the whole tour was sort of like fuck Daughters.
But on a bill like Locust and Daughters, why would you guys be opening for Cattle Decapitation when your guys' music is similar and they're the oddball in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like though I couldn't have given a shit less. Like, it didn't matter to me like whether they liked us or not. I wasn't there to make friends with Cattle Decapitation. I don't. He's a great singer, but I don't like their band. I would not listen to that shit. I think they did a great cover of Sonny's Burning on that birthday party tribute we all did. That we were all in that 3-1G birthday party tribute. I thought that was like, that's something Cattle Decapitation did I can get behind. But No, I don't. I'm not a fan. But yeah, like I said, I think that it was more their ego, and we were just sort of like, we're just fucking here playing, man. We didn't say like we need to play over Cal Decapitation. We were offered the direct.
Cal Decapitation has like that rock star mentality, but like
I mean, they've been at it for a while, and they're big now. I think, right? I mean,
yeah,
they're on tour. They've got with Full of Hell, I think, and some other people.
I'm actually seeing them on Saturday. Yeah, so I guess we'll take this out. We've been on here for a while together, and I don't want to take up too much more of your evening.
It's fine. Everyone's sleeping, and what the fuck do I care? I do.
So I had asked you to grab a few pieces of vinyl to share before the show. If you want to go ahead and take care of that now, then we can do that.
Yeah, I can do that. There's some records. Public Image Limited. Flowers of Romance. I think they're a great band. I think they're better than Sex Pistols by quite a bit. Heads and shoulders above Sex Pistols. Probably not comparable, I think, because they're such different bands, but I think that Hill had like a way more punk attitude of not giving a shit about like what the fuck anyone thought about what they're doing, and like pushed boundaries musically, as opposed to the Sex Pistols just playing punk and being too punk to give a shit. Hill like really didn't give a shit, and also had something to offer musically. And I think a lot of there aren't a lot of bands like that are like sincerely couldn't give a fuck what you think about what they're doing, and are also doing something that just like you can't like. He's very likely are not going to enjoy it. Pill did that really well, and we're great. Am I doing this right? Is this what people do?
Yeah, you're doing fine.
Great.
So I had a lot of questions in the comments about like what has been really influential to you and stuff like that.
About Hill? Influential to me?
Yes, like for Daughters musically.
No, I don't know. I think the Birthday Party was a band that Nick Cave's work in the Birthday Party was hugely influential to me. In that band, but we weren't looking up to anybody. I think we were trying to do our own thing, and I've always been a really big Elvis fan. I mean, I probably should have mentioned this much earlier.
Yeah.
That when the opportunity came for us to explore more sounds musically, that I realized that I can like try to sing like Elvis now. Like I can try to do this like Elvis shit that I've always wanted to.
Influenced by Elvis.
Yeah. So yeah, so I suppose that but it's weird to say that like Elvis was influential because it seems like bullshit. But I'm a huge Elvis fan. Like
It's an interesting take on Elvis because you are just like a dark
I tried.
Elvis.
Like I was just trying to do it. Like I don't think I did a good job, and I gave up on it. But I didn't know how to sing, and people like a lot of people were saying like, oh, they're ripping off Jesus Lizard, but that was only when like Jesus Lizard became popular again. Like then everyone was like, well, you only have Jesus Lizard to compare us to. Like you don't know that I'm actually trying to rip off Elvis. Like we make this comparison. But yeah, I was like, I'm an Elvis fan. I've scaled it back a bit, but for a long time I was an Elvis fan to a point where I had so much Elvis like memorabilia and shit that I just like people would bring me stuff, and it got to a point where it's like I got enough fucking Elvis shit. Please stop going on a trip and seeing a fucking Elvis pocket knife at a swap meet or picking up an Elvis ashtray or some shit like. I got enough stuff. I got a lot of shit. I can't take any more. So that kind of Elvis fan stuff, where I had to like realize myself that I'm going in an unhealthy place. Like that he was like a big influence for me, and just but just his voice, not necessarily like his performance or musically. But I love that kind of, he crooned, but he had like he had a sway to him.
He had his own thing for sure.
Yeah, without question. I mean, he was pretty great. So, am I still doing this record?
Yeah, you can proceed.
With shit. Records, man. So this is the Revolutionary Army of the Infant Jesus, which are I don't know if anyone's seen like the old Wicker Man film. It's sort of
I don't know.
Not the Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking instantly.
Horror show, like fucking just like gangbang of shit, right? Original film with Christopher Lee was a brilliant film of just like bizarreness and like paganism and nudity and paranoia that sort of like this band kind of accompanies that feeling of all that sort of weird, folky disquiet. And I picked them up because I liked the cover of the record, and this fella Dylan that was working at Armageddon shop in Providence, I said, hey, tell him what's going on with this record. It's really interesting looking. He said, you just got to buy the record. You're going to like that record. And it's a really great, weird record. They have some stuff on YouTube. I think when this is over, just check out some Revolutionary Army of the Infant Jesus, and it's like just kind of strange, and it feels like it's like you're listening to a cult.
Yeah.
Make really cool music.
Definitely have to check it out. It sounds very bizarre.
Yeah. Let me do another one. Let's do some more questions afterwards. But hey, Young Gods are fucking brilliant. And I was just talking to a friend of mine who said, I haven't listened to anything good in a while, which I listened to. And I said, I don't listen to anything new because I don't fucking know what's good anymore. So I just keep going back to the Young Gods self-titled album. Just like
that's how I feel about
French
Canada songs.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what, yeah, I mean, that works. However, this is like weird, just French industrial music, and they're just cool as shit, and had weird fucking videos of just like bald men beating like metal drums and doing weird shit, and can't love that. What's not to love a weirdo Frenchman playing shitty industrial music, singing about I don't know what you're talking about. It's wonderful. I hope they're not a fucking neo-Nazi band or something. You're like waving their record around. Oh, I'd like to take a minute to bring everyone's attention to my favorite French neo-Nazi band, the Young Gods, or something about the Final Solution here. Really good stuff.
It's like somebody who likes Screwdriver but just never paid attention to the lyrics.
Hey. Yeah.
Screwdriver goes fucking hard, man. Was that your last record?
No, I got a couple of it.
Have at it.
I won't overdo it. I don't listen to a lot of punk music at all anymore because I find it irritating. But Agnostic Front to Liberty and Justice 4, it's like the first hardcore band I got into when I was like 6. So this was like the mid-'80s. My brother is quite a bit older.
Agnostic Front when you were 6?
Yeah, my brother's about 10 years older than me, and he was a skateboarder in the...
I feel like you're officially the most punk human on the planet at this point. If you listen to Agnostic Front when you're 6.
Well, my brother was into it, and I thought my brother was fucking, as cool as it came. So he loved this, like, this was his favorite record. Like, he played this, he had a cassette of this, and I heard Liberty and Justice 4 so many times. That and, bands like DRI and early COC, like the Democracy album, like all that shit. Like when Master of Puppets came out, my brother like had the cassette. It was like just came out, and like listened to it in my dad's truck. So this record, is like will always be like a favorite record of mine, just because it's got that nostalgia factor for me. But it's also a fucking great record. It was like sort of one of, I think, like the best kind of like crossover hardcore metal punk record. Like Big Nuts fronted it like better than everybody else. When I was in the 4th or 5th grade, we had a new art teacher, and she allowed us to bring in music to listen to during art class. And I brought in that cassette of Liberty and Justice 4 by Agnostic Front. And I think very shortly after that, we weren't allowed to bring in music anymore. I did that, and then I brought in like a DRI tape, and then that was kind of the end of it. They weren't gonna they didn't want to subject people to that kind of shit anymore.
Okay, so I saw 2 interesting questions in the comments.
Ooh.
And
yeah.
One was, what is your philosophy on life?
What is my philosophy on life? I don't care much for philosophy. I think that it's a lot of bullshit. That it's really just for people to pretend they have answers to questions that can't be answered. Like to say that the concept that philosophy doesn't exist because of philosophy, because there are questions that can be like that in itself is philosophical, right? That the anti-philosophy then becomes a philosophy. So it's a lot of chasing your own tail. So I don't have answers, and I don't think I'll ever find the answers.
Well, what's something that you've learned along the way? You know, that's kind of a good rule of thumb.
I haven't learned.
Well, I mean, if you're sober now, you've learned from your mistakes in some sort of way.
Well, I just try not to make them. That's all. It's you know, do your best not to hurt anybody. But I don't. Is that a philosophy? I think that's just like advice or something. I mean, don't be too hard on yourself. Maybe don't beat yourself up. There are plenty of people who would love to do that for you. Don't give them the head start. You know, I don't know. I'm not. I wouldn't try to. I'm a do as I say, not as I do type of person for a long time, where people would ask me for when I was like real fucked up, and I had friends asking me like for advice about shit, and I don't know. Like, why are you asking me? I don't. What the fuck do I know? I can barely get to bed in the morning. So I don't think anyone should seek answers or listen to someone else's answers, because they can be insincere or wrong or not applicable, or things that work for others don't work for others.
I kind of live by the rule of like everything anyone says is pretty much bullshit. You know what I mean? Like if you think about it, like in the sense of like science, people only listen to people to scientists because they've been deemed smart by some other fucking jackass. You know what I mean? And it's like no one really has any. I mean, only knowledge we have is from our own mistakes and from relative times in life. But at the same time, like you can ask somebody the same question a year apart from then, and the answer is going to be different. So it's kind of like life is a figure it out on your own kind of thing, you know? Yeah,
there's no right answer, right? It's like I said, things are applicable or they're not, and what's who's to say like what the fuck what this all is, or where we're going, or what works and what doesn't work, you know? And people who have views, they change. You know, you believe this, and then you believe something else later. It's not. Just fucking just do what you can. Just do what you can.
So
don't hurt anybody. Don't hurt anybody. Do your best.
Matt says, "Your gravestone," in parentheses, Alexis Marshall, try not to hurt anybody. What would your gravestone say if you had control over that?
Why wouldn't I have control over that? Is there like
who knows when they're going to die? I don't think. Do you have it written down in your wallet what your gravestone's going to say? Like, who knows what the fuck can happen?
No, I don't want to be a. There should be no marker. I've done enough damage in my life. Once I'm dead, I think I should get the hell out of here, and everyone can move on.
Just throw you in the trash.
I mean, just get cremated. You sprinkle me somewhere pleasant, or maybe when I'm 90, I'll love watching the pigeons over at some park. Sprinkle me at the northeast bench, Pantera Park, or fucking whatever.
So is there, all right, we're gonna wrap it up now. I've had you in here for 2 hours, man. I don't want to take you up too much more of your time.
Sure.
Is there not to say that I haven't had a blast doing this, and I will say, I usually, once we get about halfway to 3/4 of the way through the interview, I usually hit people with would you rather questions. And, would you rather drink piss or, drown in vomit? Would you rather fucking shit a light bulb or have pubic hair for teeth and stuff like that? But, like,
right.
I respect you too much as a musician to seriously to give you that bullshit. And besides, you've done everything anyway, so it would be very boring for me to be like, hey, would you drink piss? And you'd be like, yeah, I've already drank piss. You know what I mean? So
I appreciate that. That's the best compliment, honestly. You've not given me these the throwaway questions.
Yeah,
that means a lot. It really does.
I don't prepare for any of these interviews at all. Like I said, I have Keith who sends me a handful of questions. We take questions out of the audience, but this is all just stuff I've generally wanted to know. I like to go into an interview as if I'm having a conversation with someone, and not for once because there's been a few, but I actually wanted to have a conversation with you, so that's the way I approach it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It was painstakingly difficult to make it all come to fruition.
Definitely not, dude. I've had worse. Believe me. I've had people drop off the day of the show and not even tell me. So I'm just.
Oh, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, I'm just happy you showed up, man.
That must have been someone from Heavy Low or something.
Actually, what's his name? Danny.
I'm joking. I met them once, and they seemed like really nice.
They're awesome dudes. But Danny from Heavy Low has given me the runaround since the beginning of this show. But I've hung out with him before. He's a great dude, so I don't hold it against him. I know he's being a hippie and growing weed and doing crazy stuff. So, one of the other things that we usually do is we try to do a lot of giveaways and stuff on our show, and obviously by you being here, my show is gaining followers because they're going to see this interview and be like, oh, well, this is great content, and I'm going to like this page to see more stuff about bands like this that I like. And we usually, I didn't do it in this interview because I have a feeling that this one is going to be the one that, it gets more views and everything else than everyone else.
Don't put that kind of pressure.
No, I can already tell that it has a lot of views. I can't check it right now, but I know it does. And so I kind of made the conscious decision to not spam it all the time. Be like, oh, if you click the like button, you can win this Locust mini disc. You know what I mean? Why
don't you do it? It's your show, right? That's what you do.
Yeah, but this is the one that I wanted to take seriously. I don't take any of them seriously, and this is the one I wanted to take seriously. So, hopefully that gets me somewhere when it comes to this guy's show. Long story short, I basically was wondering if you had anything that maybe you could send and we could give it away on the show, or, just if you think I'm a cool guy, you could send me a t-shirt.
I think I probably have we had some records. We have I've got the last few of the Hell Songs 10th anniversary records.
Yeah, I actually just bought that
one. Bring to the Dillinger shows, but I'll send a couple to you if you'd like.
That would be absolutely amazing. Yeah, I'll get with you about that afterwards. But the last question that I usually ask all my guests is, what has been the most fulfilling moment in your music or art career?
It's been like 2 decades, right?
You've paid your dues, man. You've paid your dues at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't have a lot to show for it.
Hey, Canada Songs is technically classic rock now. Right? Isn't it it's 10 years classic rock?
Is that what it is?
I think
Because
it is.
that Hellsongs just had the 10th year. Last year was 10 years for Hellsongs. So, As a Sunsets, I guess would be classic rock now, right?
Yeah.
I'd say that, unrelated to music, so it's art, but kind of publishing this book and is been like the biggest thing for me. That as much as I enjoy making music and playing music, I love bookstores. I could just like wander around bookstores for hours and hours, and it's kind of always been this goal of mine to find myself like part of that kind of world where to have a book kind of be published and to be on a bookshelf somewhere, as stupid as that may seem.
Hey, it's better than a tombstone, really, if you think about it.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it could last longer, right? So, doing this book has been like the most, has been the highlight of my artistic career. And
where can people get that again?
I'm all out, but they're available at Deathwish Inc. I don't need to tell anybody Deathwish Inc. Everyone knows what the fuck that. But it's called "A Sea Above the Pains of Our Youth," and it's just my poetry collection. It's released by Permanent Sleep Press, and pretty happy about it. I can't fucking promote things. I don't know how to do that.
You just talk about it, man. You just say, "Hey, I did this thing."
I know, but it's just then I get self-conscious. Like, am I pushing now? Am I pushing a product now? Am I like a fucking salesman? Is that what?
Billy Mays here.
It's awful. It's an awful thing to have to do. Capitalism, right? It's this country. That's what everybody does. I've never been good at that. So I'm going to fail as an American.
Hey,
I can't embrace it.
If you want to get into America, if you got the time, one of the questions in the comments from Harley actually was, what is your opinion on the current state of politics, if you have one?
I think everyone is too... I got a lot of fucking opinions I'm not going to talk about because I like to think I don't fall on the left or the right at this point. I think there are too many people who are all the way left and all the way right. There's this kind of like you're with us or against us attitude, and it's very anti-democracy. We are all living inside a vacuum. We're hearing the things we want to hear, and it doesn't support our narrative. Is not just wrong, but like maliciously a lie. And I think that's extremely dangerous, unhealthy. We can't have conversations anymore about anything, whether it's about gender issues or the poverty or whatever. It's either people don't seem to disagree. It's you agree with me or you're wrong, and that's it. And there's too many. There's too many fucking people. We got too many people living in this world on top of each other, right next to each other, for it to be that simple. As in, it's like this, or it's no other way, and it doesn't work. We can't flourish as a society if we're not going to kind of play. You gotta play along. You don't have to like what everybody says, but don't hurt anybody. Like we were talking in the philosophy. Don't hurt anybody.
I really think that you should put that on
cool,
your
man.
tombstone. That'd be great.
Cool. Just don't be. Just be cool. Like, I don't know. I like talking about politics, but I get myself in trouble talking politics.
It's all right. Fine by me. I want to thank you so much for showing up and going through with this, and it's been absolutely great. And it always hurts to meet one of your idols and then be a douchebag. And I just want to say that I'm not let down by cyber meeting you. You turned out to be an awesome, nice dude, and it's kind of awesome and humbling to I only know the stories of you, and I only know you're not a human to me in my eyes. You're a fucking monolithic, insane person, and to humanize you for 2 hours, and have a conversation with you has been absolutely humbling, and this has been the high point of my artistic career as a podcaster. So
I'll tell you something. When I saw Korn in like 94.
Oh my god, dude. I thought I was going to get through one episode without talking about Korn. I was so close. Do that? I was so close.
Does everyone do that?
Everyone.
Look, I saw Korn in like 94 or something like that. Like, the first like full US tour they've done. And I met the singer after the show. And I thought he was like the fucking coolest guy. I thought this was like
Jonathan Davis.
He's cool. He's being so nice. Signed my ticket. It was like just being a cool guy. And the people around me were like, "Oh man, blow like all fucking," and I was like, "Yeah, like a little stuffy in here." So just kind of said thanks and left. And I kept. I was like, "Man, he was like a really fucking cool guy. Like he's in this band. Totally appreciate his band and his music and whatever." And then I started playing music myself a few years later. And I started getting that kind of reaction from people where like people were just like so excited to talk to me. And I realized that, oh, I'm just some fucking jerk off. And these people are super stoked to just like talk to me because they think like I'm more than I am. And I had that moment that like, oh, that guy from Korn was just a fucking jerk off. Like we're all just like some fucking, I'm just some dude.
Yeah, see, that's what I've kind of grown to know that too, because I've been.
Everybody's just like
they're no different than anyone else. They just did something different, It's crazy.
There's nothing super like. People aren't terribly interesting. Nobody really is. Like there are people who do some cool shit and some cool places, done some cool things, and that they have interesting stories and their experiences are interesting. But most people are not terribly interesting.
Yeah.
Man, it's not like a knock on people. It's just like we're just a bunch of fucking. We're just all stumbling through the dark, like, trying to fucking figure it out.
Well, for doing this, I've done this for 1.5 years now, every single Sunday, and for some ungodly reason, all these really amazing bands want to talk to me for 2 hours, and I don't get it. Maybe it's because they haven't talked to anybody about their music in 7 years or something, but they're really stoked on the fact about doing it, and I sit here and I'll get super anxious about it and be like, man, I've listened to these guys for so long, and it's going to be weird sitting down and talking to a stranger on the internet, and it always is at first, but then by the end of it, I'm always just like, I cannot believe that they're so fucking nice, and they're just humans, it's really weird. But anyway, I'm sorry I've drug this out long enough.
It's all right, man. It's been fun.
All right, dude.
It's been good.
I appreciate
it. Chat.
Hope we cross paths sometime. If you're ever in Florida, man, hit me up.
Oh, yeah.
I doubt you're gonna be making it to Florida anytime soon. It doesn't seem like you.
I'm sure we will. I think maybe next year Daughter's gonna try to do some proper touring, as opposed to just kind of West Coast and like Northeast and.
If you make it down to St. Petersburg, man, I'll show you a good, clean, sober time, man. We'll have fun.
Well, we've exchanged numbers now.
Yeah.
So fuck it with that.
I actually posted about that earlier. I was like, I am literally texting Lex right now, what the fuck is my life?
Man, I said all that bullshit about like people are just dudes, but I did a song with Paul Barker from Ministry a few years ago for his solo record. And I grew up listening to Ministry, and I formed like a friendship with Paul and talked on the phone with Paul and had those moments of like, and I had to say to like Paul, I don't want to like sound like an asshole, but I've been listening to you since I was like 13 years old. I'm like super excited that you asked me to be on your record, and like, and I had those moments where it's like I'm fucking talking to Paul Barker. Like, I'm friends with Paul Barker now. It's like my life. I'm like, nah, I'm friends with Paul Barker. This is fucking crazy. So maybe like throw away all that bullshit I said where like people are just people. But Paul's just like a dude. He's just a good dude. That's what it is. People are just people.
Do you own a screen printing company?
I do.
See, it's really crazy how similar our lives are, or how similar we are, because honestly, that has been a serious passion of mine, was always to either A, make music, or some kind of way help out the musical scene or whatever. So it was like, after I decided that I didn't want to do music anymore, and it was hard to get something rolling, I just wanted to make fucking t-shirts, man. I wanted to do merch and like shit like that. And you know, somebody actually Dylan, my co-host, who's not here but tonight, he in the comments was like, it's really awesome to see such a influential band to me, like how you've become like sober, and you know, like our paths we're kind of on the same way and going the same way and stuff. And you know, it's really fucking awesome. And what's your take on like getting into screen printing? Because like I've wanted to do it forever.
We you know, I went to high school. I went to a vocational school, but I went for a year and then I dropped out because I just wanted to do acid and skip my classes. But I went to a vocational school where I studied, and so it was like, it involved presses and the darkroom work and the bind. Like I used to just get stoned and sit in the bindery and just like use there's like a hydraulic stapler and like staple pamphlets, just like high, and like almost stapled my finger multiple times like a hydraulic staple. And so like I dropped out, but then like years later, kind of embraced screen printing. A friend of mine was selling a screen printing business. He was moving to California, and me and a couple of other friends bought it. And I thought, man, I wish I just like kind of devoted myself to high school, because I'm ironically doing the thing I didn't graduate for. Yeah. But it just like, it seemed like it was like a lot of fun. I enjoy, like, you get fucking sweaty and you're just hanging out and like listening to, you know, like the news,
cool music and stuff. I worked in a screen printing shop not too long ago, and it was a fucking blast.
Yeah,
we were printing dogs' faces on socks, but I mean, it was awesome.
It doesn't even matter like what you're printing. Like we did a lot of cool shit. Like, you know, we'll do a lot of stuff for the Armageddon shop. So it's like, do like Drop Dead stuff and like all those Siege reunion shows. We did all the Siege merch. And
see, I kind of romanticize it in the sense that, like, I don't know if you've ever like remember like the first piece of merch that anything you've ever done musically got, and you like pull it out of the box and you're like, fuck yeah, you know, that's my band on this shirt. Like, I want to be able to give that to people. I want people to have that feeling at an affordable cost and be able to help everyone out, you know? Like,
yeah.
That's just me, though, I guess.
Yeah, it's fun to do. And it's kind of cool when, like, I'm somewhere and then I'll see somebody wearing a shirt and I'll think, like, somebody wearing some, like, a body shirt. And we're like, oh, I like, personally printed that shirt you're wearing. I've made that shirt. You're wearing that shirt. I fucking did that. So it's kind of cool when you see stuff like that, but yeah, it's a fun thing to do, and it helps when you're doing it with friends, like you're all just hanging out together and printing shit and listening to Faith No More really loudly. And you know. All
right, I know I said goodbye like 10 times, but I mean it this time.
Take care. It's nice. Hey man,
I'll be in touch.
Had a good time. All right, man. Yeah, you got my number.
Later, man.
All right. Bye-bye.
Well, I don't even think I need to say it. And Dylan's not here to say it. Such a nice fucking guy. Alright, so I'm gonna wrap this one up, guys. I really appreciate everybody who hung around for the entirety of it. It obviously seemed like a lot of you. Sorry I couldn't get to everybody's questions. I was really trying to keep it like on point for this interview. Trying to show some sort of professionalism in a market that I never show professionalism in whatsoever. And it might be a little weird to you guys, and I'm sorry if you didn't enjoy the show as much because of it, but I hope you did. Everybody take care, and I'll see you next week when I'll be interviewing Knife the Glitter. Bye-bye.